Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us right here at Morning at NTV. An opinion poll caused uproar yesterday in Uganda that was authored by Afrobarometer. Now, this opinion poll, according to it, it gave President Museveni the lead over other political candidates, presidential candidates in this race. It gave him between 53 to 57%, yes, a lead over other presidential candidates. But then so many people were up in arms saying that might not be spelling the actual magnitude of what is happening on the ground or the right or correct thoughts of many citizens of Uganda. But we do have the author of the report, the national investigator for Afrobarometer, Mr. Francis Chivirige. He won't be alone here. We shall be also be talking to Charity Ahimbisiwe, the Executive Director, Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda. Both gentlemen and lady join me right now in studio. Very good morning.
Good morning,
Romeo. Let me start with you, Francis. Before I go to you, Francis Chivirige and Charity, we have something that is simmering within the Kamuli Woman MP race. We want to know what is happening between the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, and Ms. Salam Musumba, the FDC candidate. We do know that Ms. Mwesigwa pulled out, but Moses is going to be enlightening us on what is happening on the ground right now. Moses, a very good morning.
With 1 day left to the polling day and the presidential and parliamentary elections brought to end, the mood in Kamuli is still low, coupled with heavy security deployment. One of the constituencies which has put voters to watch in the district is the district MP woman slot, where the clash is between Salam Musumba FDC and NRM's Rebecca Kadaga. While on a radio talk show yesterday evening on Busoga 1, KBS Kamuli Broadcasting Services and several FM stations, Kadaga said she was worried that her opponents have already started taking ballot papers in the Jinja district, where they want to bring them to Kamuli and stuff them in the ballot boxes, a background against which she says she has urged the law enforcers and the Electoral Commission to keep a close eye to see to it that bribing does not happen. Kadaga was also informed the electorate on during her talk show that Mrs. Salam Musumba, with her campaign team, which comprises this chairperson, Thomas Kategere, who is also seen to become the member of parliament of Governor South Constituency, which is being represented by Kibale Morris, have a plan for taking her to court to contest the results in case she wins to deny her the chance of contesting for speakership, saying Isaac Musumba is also being floated to be Isaac Musumba, the minister, is also being floated to be the lead counsel in this case. Meanwhile, Salam Musumba is preparing to address the media at her home in Namwendwa, and all the transpirations will be communicated after now. And I'm Ruben Moses Mutaka, NTV correspondent Kamuli.
Moses, before you go, you didn't tell us anything about Babidie, that is Brenda Babidie Nabidie, the NUP candidate. How is she performing on the ground?
Babidie Bridget is one of the candidates also seeking to become a woman member of parliament. But the most contested, the hot seat is between FD Salam Musumba and the NRM's Rebecca Kadaga. But there are 3 people in the race: Bridget Babidie, the NUP candidate, Antoine Rebecca Kadaga, the NRM candidate, and FDC Salam Musumba.
Okay, thank you very much, Moses.
You're welcome.
And of course, Deborah Mwesigwa also pulled out from that race, leaving Salam Musumba, Rebecca Kadaga, and Nabidie Brenda from the NUP camp. I also do have Francis Chivirige. He is the national investigator, Afrobarometer. I did talk about that opinion poll that took center stage yesterday, causing uproar on social media sites. And coincidentally, it came after the shutdown of the internet, as per the recommendations of the Uganda Communications Commission. So, yes, it could have been worse. Francis Chivirige is here. Very good morning, sir. And very good morning once again, Charity Ahimbisiwe.
Good morning,
Romeo.
So help us understand how you came to these figures. How many respondents did you interview? 2,400? Does that actually, 2,400 people actually spell the actual thoughts of all Ugandans in this country?
Yes, thank you for having us this morning. And yeah, the science of doing opinion polls is based on random nationally representative samples. You may very well recall our previous samples in Uganda have even been smaller, so 1,200 interviews. We've gone to a bigger sample size this time to give chance to more cross or disaggregated analysis across sub-regions, for instance, across urban and rural, across sub-region, and any further subdivisions, so that we can get meaningful subsamples to do comparative analysis. But probably I can quickly say that for a population, national population of about, say, 40 million in Uganda, we can do the same sample size as they would do in the United States with 300 million. So, and the same sample size of, say, 1,200, and it would be enough. The idea is that, for instance, you don't need to, for instance, if you go complaining of a fever to see a physician, they don't need to draw your entire blood in order to understand whether you are suffering from malaria or not. They will take a small sample. Usually they draw from, say, your fingertips. And that little drop would be able to tell them what is in your entire blood system. So the same thing we use, only that the sample has to mirror the population. So we will go across the entire country, select representative villages. We went to 300 villages in total across...
Out of the 68,000 villages,
yes,
you went to 300.
300 villages across the entire country, and in 110 districts. And we went, obviously, to 2,400 households, in order, because in each household, we take one interview. So in terms of sample size, that should be pretty accurate.
Well, of course, in the 2015 elections and campaigns in the United States, before the elections in 2016, we did see many of the opinion polls coming out in favor of Clinton. But then we did see Donald Trump win that election. So even your opinion poll, would you say that the 2,400 respondents don't actually spell the actual will of all the 45 million Ugandans?
No, they do. And even those polls you are referring to in the US were accurate based on the method that was used.
But the candidate lost.
Wait a minute. The difference is that, for instance, when you draw the sample, you need people to talk to. So where do you find them? So if you are going to talk to people who are registered on the voter register roll, those who you've known to have voted before, because look, in the US and other developed countries, they do so many polls, so many surveys. That's why on a polling day, a few hours, they can be able to predict who is actually going to win. We cannot here because we do 1 or 2 surveys. This time I think I have seen 3 surveys, pre-election surveys. I think there was one from the Red Paper, I think one from the New Vision, and ours. So that's very few surveys. So you need a lot of data collected about voting patterns in order to be able to predict.
Which was hard because of COVID-19.
Yes. So now, the case you are referring to in the US was because, for instance, they would estimate voter turnout and say, okay, the people who are likely to go to polls are this number. And those are the ones they then try to reach and interview and say, how will you vote? But if that is upset by, say, a huge turnout of people who have been unlikely voters to join the voting basket, then you are likely to get the figures wrong. Our surveys are done face-to-face and one-on-one in the language of the respondent at their household or workplace. So we meet people face-to-face, physically, not on the phone, over the net, but we will walk to their homes and speak to them. Well, there are people who, like 22% in this particular survey, who declined to answer that question, who would you vote for? It is their right, and they can vote either way. So we are reporting that 57% of people we talked to, whether registered or not registered, whether they intend to vote or not, we asked them, who do you think is likely to win? That's the 57% who said they think President Museveni is likely to win. And 23% said Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi is likely to win. But there is a 22% who said, no, I don't want to answer. And it is their right. They can vote either way. Because as a researcher, that's how far you can go. Yeah, because you can only ask the question and wait for a response. So if a person declines to give you a response, so that's it. You ask somebody else.
Let's get the 2 cents of Charity Himbisibe, the Executive Director, Citizens Coalition on Electoral Democracy. Charity, these polls, do you think they reflect the actual will of all Ugandans?
You see, I think Francis has been trying to explain to you the science behind polls.
And you've been watching what has been happening on the campaign trail.
Yes.
You've been seeing the droves of people the NUP candidate has been pulling on this on his campaign trail. Robert Chagulanyi and President Museveni, who has been meeting NRM leaders, vis-a-vis, you could be seeing a real contrast between the crowds that were being pulled on the other side and the mobilization President Museveni was doing, talking to his leaders. Using that basis, would you say that this poll is actually correct?
And let me contextualize for you with 2016 first. In 2016, Romeo, the Honorable Mama Mbabazi had big crowds in Arua, in Moroto. He had really big crowds. But those crowds did not turn out to be votes. He ended up having something like 0.2% of the vote. And so this time round, you have seen 3 polls coming out, and all 3, the Monitor poll, put President Museveni in the lead. The New Vision poll, same story. Now this CPO's poll comes with the same story. For me as an observer, I cannot certify what is being said by the polls 100%. Why? Because I know for sure that a voter can change their mind anytime.
That's a fact.
And that a voter is gullible, very gullible to the extent that on voting day while walking to the box, they can change their mind as they walk there. So if it were me, even if I was in the NRM, I would not take this as a comfort. I would still go out to look out for the 22% who are saying, for us, we will not answer that question.
And the why factor.
Because after all, even the ones that answered the question can rethink what they answered. And they are entitled to it until they cast that ballot. So as an observer, I can, in as far as go to say, yes, the poll came out. Yes, this is what it is saying. And I cannot discredit what the poll is saying, because parts of this poll that I saw, we had done also baseline surveys. And we have been on the ground, the recallability of candidates. If you see what they produced for you, who do they recall most? And who don't they recall most? You have things of 96%, 90% for Robert Chagulanyi, and then you have your friend Katumba Oye, and then you have Mugisha Muntu, and you have who else coming on there? You have the next presidential candidate, who is Mugisha Muntu, and Tumukunde, going below Katumba. I want to surprise you that even me in the countryside, I had not expected that Katumba would come too close to the FDC. Because FDC, for the last 20 years, has had the lion's share of being the second player in this country. So how did NUP do this? How did they wake up, reorganize themselves, put their ship together? And yet somewhere within that poll as well, things we have seen as observers, the poll says that Ugandans no longer trust political parties because the way people behave in political parties does not give them the trust that they are credible people. They think of people within political parties as looking for their own interests. So with that kind of thinking, which we can also correlate to, it may not be too far off from the truth, but it could also be far off from the truth, because a voter, like I said, is gullible.
Chibidike, let's talk about the methodology when it comes to selecting the respondents that you talk to. Our respondents are randomly selected. Talk to us more about this random selection.
The random selection, as I said, is a protocol. Our protocols are all on our website. Maybe just to say a little bit more about the Afrobarometer, we are Pan-African, non-partisan research project, now in 36 African countries. And we've been doing opinion polling in Africa for now this is our 21st year. And we've done these surveys in Uganda from the year 2000, in June, when we headed to the referendum, June that year. And I have been part of all these surveys in Uganda. And I now do also support the Afrobarometer research efforts in the 36 African countries. So our method, without taking a lot of your time, is well documented. and he is internationally approved, and he is online. So anyone can take a look. But I wanted to chip in a little bit about what Charity has submitted. It is true, a lot of things are changing on the decline. If you look at our poll, I think it's unfortunate that many of our audiences and readers always want to run into these sensational results, but they forget where do they come from. What is changing? What are the trends? I can tell you that not only Afrobarometer, but other researchers have noted that there is a steep decline in the preference for democracy, not only in Uganda, but on the entire continent. Something wrong is happening in people's trust, for instance, in elections. The same goes for trust in institutions, including institutionalized politics. We tend to support charismatic leaders. We tend to support strong men and decry institutions. You've seen, actually, one of the questions we've asked, we didn't publish this in that paper because it would have been voluminous to share in one go, but we did ask, has the opposition presented a credible alternative for Uganda? And the numbers are declining compared to 2015. And that's telling from, say, what Charity has shared, of the chaos and commotion we've seen in the political parties in Uganda.
So the respondents were saying opposition doesn't offer any alternatives? A
credible alternative
to
governing. So people could be saying, okay, government has not done well. By the way, performance on service delivery by government, views on social service delivery by government is also in the decline. People are saying you are not doing well. But when they look over to say who else can do better than these, they're saying there is no credible alternative.
It seems like they are willing to stick with the devil they know than the angel they do not know.
Maybe.
I see.
But now you have to look at these numbers and see where do they come from. I will tell you, for instance, when we asked respondents...
But before you do, Chibirige, I'm sure the viewer who is watching is even wondering what other factors came into this poll when it was being authored. Let's give you a story here of that opinion poll and the reactions from members of the public. Yes.
The latest survey by Afrobarometer polled 2,400 Ugandans across the country between the 22nd of December last year to 7th of this month. With a reported 2% error margin or 95% confidence level, the research found NRM's Yoweri Museveni to be the most popular candidate at 98%, followed by NUP's Robert Kyagulanyi at 90%, FDC's Patrick Oboy Amriat at 48%, independent candidate John Katumba at 36%, Mugisha Muntu at 25%, and Norbert Mao at 24%. Asked who they would vote for president if the elections were held then, 53% of the interviewees preferred Yoweri Museveni, while 18% chose Robert Kyagulanyi, and the rest shared 5% of the respondents. 22% of the respondents preferred to keep their choice a secret.
We can only wait to see how the vote outcome will be after the actual voting. Usually, in other countries, people who refuse to answer a survey question tend to answer in the same profile as those who answered the survey question. In some other cases, they may answer completely differently.
The pollsters found that at least 52% of the interviewees would vote for NRM flag bearers at parliamentary level, while 29% would vote other parties and 18% declined to reveal. 76% of Ugandans think accurate counting will be done at polling stations, and they do not believe what will be done at the National Tally Center.
So maybe it is incumbent on the Electoral Commission to come out more clearly and show clarity to people how the tallying process is being conducted so that such doubts can be dealt with.
The report also underlined a decline in the demand for democracy,
which is worrisome. Because we've had strong support for democratic governance on the continent since '99, and this recent wave of decline is worrying.
As Ugandans go to the polls Thursday, Afrobarometer researchers say their studies are always close to the final outcome, and only after the Electoral Commission's final announcement shall we find out how close this was. Edward Muhumza, NTV.
Well, according to the same opinion poll, within 2019, 52 of the respondents thought that the Electoral Commission was very neutral. But in 2021, yes, 2019-2020, the respondents thought that 52, that the Electoral Commission was actually very neutral. But in 2021, 57% believe that the Electoral Commission favors some political parties. Mr. Chibirige, go ahead.
Yeah, so again, as we reported at the press conference, the negative views about institutions in Uganda are not new. I think the Electoral Commission in our survey of 2003, it was the round 3 survey Afrobarometer after the 2001 elections, I think got the lowest rating for the Electoral Commission back then. There is an improvement in this one, but there is also a plummet, a decline as you have reported.
Yes.
So, and the way we take this, it is not only with the Electoral Commission, it is with the other institutions. I think people, ordinary Ugandans know that, are losing trust in institutions because they say, well, if you need anything in an institution, you have to first ask, who do I know there? Where do I start? Otherwise, people think they are going to take a lot of time to get served. These and other reasons drive people to say, look, I was telling you earlier, we've asked respondents to name 3 most important problems that government should solve first and foremost after the elections. They give you the 3 problems and they say, okay, now first, those 3 rank in economic terms, social service delivery terms, and then the 4th is governance issues, democracy issues, human rights issues, and it is only 10%. So about 26% will say we want jobs, we want incomes, we want salaried incomes. Another about 22% say they want government services. They were referring to water, sanitation, electricity, better roads. And then you will have the 10%. So when you look at all of this range, you see, okay, where does the opposition concentrate when they are campaigning? It is this 10% of the problems and not the 40, 50% of the other bigger issues that are more economic, more social, more service delivery issues. So they will say, okay, human rights record, the police is brutal. All right, okay, that's a very bad thing, okay? So they say, okay, police brutality. They will say interference with our campaigns, which are all related to their freedoms to operate under the Constitution, and you would understand. But in terms of the mindset of the Ugandan, they're like, okay, I need bread and butter issues. I need food on the table. And sadly, those are issues the campaigning, not only in this time, but even before. Because I think that's the space they are left to deal with. Because a man will come up and say how he's going to build a road, how he's going to build your school. And I'm not saying the president, I'm saying any other campaigner, could be an MP. And we've heard about this phrase that you don't have XYZ services because you voted badly. So now, and this is happening in the campaign period. So how can you promise you will also build a road when you can't even run your own campaign? But somebody else will bring graders and dig the road up.
Of course, you have a fresh university candidate who is promising employment to the thousands of unemployed youth.
Yes.
But of course, let's get some of the reactions of Ugandans towards this opinion poll. Yes. Ugandans.
Today, the Afrobarometer survey released its findings for the 2021 general elections. The survey found out that 53% of Ugandans interviewed would vote for Museveni in Thursday's general elections. NUP's Robert Chagulanyi is placed second with 18% and other 9 candidates at 5%. Reacting to the poll's results, FDC's Patrick Oboy Amuriat, John Katumba and Nas Kalembe say the poll only favored the sponsors.
Most of the time it depends on who pays for the opinion poll, and you can trust that in Uganda we have never had an accurate opinion poll.
If I don't know who funded the initiative, I don't know on which side is it pleasing. I'm not happy about what the results they gave us.
It's an NRM opinion poll. Obviously they will give themselves the lion's share. I have moved around this country. The current president has lost the goodwill of the people completely.
ANT's Mugisha Muntu says, whereas he doesn't dismiss the poll results, he does not rely on them either.
But we normally concentrate on ensuring that we do everything humanly possible to influence the reality on the ground, whatever it is, change it to a reality that we desire.
Asked about it, the National Unity Platform's Robert Chagulanyi declined to comment, saying he wanted to study the report first.
I would rather comment about something that I've looked at. I'm sorry.
NRM's Information Director Emmanuel Dombo agrees with the poll result as it reflects the work they have been dedicated to over the years.
I think that President Museveni is still a very popular candidate in Uganda. That is the fact which we have been telling people, and others have been objecting. Secondly, many people have been predicting a rerun, especially other candidates. Unfortunately, if we can go by what the other polls have said, they just indicate that there cannot be a rerun.
Uganda goes to polls on Thursday to determine a final outcome. Olivia Komgisha, NTV.
All right, fewer than half of those respondents feel like the election campaign environment has been free and fair for all candidates. And also the silencing of opposition by government, 61% feel like government has meted out a lot of violence on these opposition loyalists to silence them during this electoral period. And on the issue of fear, according to the findings, fear of political intimidation or violence during elections has increased compared to 2011. Charity Ahimbisibe, could this be the reason, the fear, the reason why the 22 decided to abstain to give their opinion on this poll?
And you're not far off from what I think as well. The fear could contribute to it, the intimidation. You see, that is why, as observers, we've been calling for credibility, transparency, freeness of the process, inclusiveness. That's why we tried to call on the police to restrain themselves. These were the real reasons why we were doing that. We're saying that because at the end of the day, you cannot know what a silent person has. But a person who is participating and speaking up on the process and feels the euphoria to participate in the process, speaks up, and you're able to predict with precision what they're thinking. But the fear and intimidation, what it does is make people lose trust in the process. That is why we came out very strongly. But I am also happy with this poll on one front, Romeo, and it is a very selfish point. Ugandans have said they trust local observers and international observers in all the institutions.
59%.
This is the one group of people that Ugandans are saying we trust when it comes to elections. I want government and I want the Electoral Commission to hear that they trust us because what we do is objective. Could they do everything in their capacity to facilitate us to observe the processes that we give that one objective, independent opinion at the end of
By
the process?
Monday, some observer missions had not been accredited.
Yeah,
Has said to been accredited, ready to observe the election on Thursday?
No. Not even SEDU.
So what does that mean, Charity? No oversight from local and, of course, the international observers will be there, but then the local ones.
The local observers, most of them have gotten a chance of being accredited. IGAD is accredited, East African Observers is accredited, Women's Situation Room is accredited.
Indeed.
The local observers, the accreditation we have and which we're going to use is the one of voter education. We applied right at the beginning for the accreditation of election observation. And in our view, we fulfilled all the requirements of government. They asked us for national IDs, we put them there. They asked us for the organizations, we put all of them there. They asked us for details of whether they are registered and everything. We did present all these things. And we have been asking every day, how far is the process? They say, hold on, hold on, hold on, and hold on.
All right, Charity, I'll engage you more on that conversation, but I think we should let Chibidige go. But before you go, give us your parting shots, Mr. Chibidige.
Thank you, Romeo. I think two things come out in this opinion poll. The two big things I would love to speak about. One is people's worries and fears about COVID-19. A significant number of Ugandans did indicate that they are worried that COVID-19 may have negative impacts on this particular election in two ways. One, that it may make it difficult for some people to go physically to vote, and that it may make officials and institutions do their work not fairly. The other is that people seem not to trust the election results at the National Tally Center. And our results showed that 76% would trust, they think that the polling results announced at the polling station would be accurate. They think it will be accurate. But only 34% felt that what will be announced at the National Tally Center will be accurate. We think that the Electoral Commission can do more to speak about these fears, as well as the fears you have talked about. There is a lot in that report that paints the picture that if, for instance, the ratings are so low for the opposition, it is also because of a variety of reasons.
But of course, the biggest takeaway for me, Mr. Chividige, is the 22 people who decided to abstain.
Yes.
And do you believe that more people might abstain from casting their vote tomorrow because of the fear and intimidation and so forth?
No, 25% said they are registered to vote, they have national IDs, and they have checked their voter registration details, and that they would go and vote. The 22% said, I will not tell you who I will vote for.
But I will go and vote.
Yeah. So, which is a big number. And for me, I would say we have to wait and see what the results are. Secondly, we have to go and vote. And we have to go and vote peacefully and observe all the regulations, because this is our election. It is election for Uganda. We are all Ugandans. And when we go and cast our ballots and play by the rules and observe all the guidelines we've been given and make it peaceful, I know there is, even in our survey, there is a lot of worries about security and violence. And as you've indicated, the report also shows that there is an increase in these fears. And it is the duty of all Ugandans, like the President mentioned yesterday in his speech and address, that it's our duty to make our elections peaceful. I would like to end on that.
All right, Francis Chividige is the National Coordinator, Afrobarometer. He was not alone. We also did have Charity Ahimbisi, which is the Executive Director from the Citizens Coalition on Electoral Democracy. She won't be going away. We shall be releasing Mr. Chividige for now. But let's take a breather. We'll be right back. Do not forget, Miriam Atembe is also in studio today.